everybody.
Hello.
Nice to meet you all. Hopefully we'll get to be on a first name basis as the day goes on here. I've learned a few first names already, and if you don't mind, just sort of test me on this as we go around. If you would just give me your first name, please.
Tony.
Say again?
Tony.
Tony, good, thanks.
Jennifer.
We met Jennifer, thanks.
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, okay.
Eunice.
Eunice, hello.
Eunice.
Eunice, thank you.
Belinda.
Belinda, hello. It's a pleasure to see you.
Steve.
Steve, hi. Thanks for being here.
Antonio.
Hello, Antonio. Your home is Mexico?
Guatemala.
Guatemala. Pleasure, nice to see you.
Wayne.
Wayne, hello, thank you.
Jonathan.
Yes, John, we met.
Yep.
Nice to see you.
Yelena.
Say again?
Yelena.
Yelena. Nice, thank you.
Becky.
Becky, hello. Nice to see you.
Claire.
Hi, Claire. Nice to meet you too.
Katie.
Katie, hello.
Joseph.
Joseph, thanks. Robert, we met. And Kat.
Lauren. Cat Lady
Nice to
Birds.
meet you. Are you comfortable there for the whole hour? Okay, good. Kirsten gave me a little bit of the background of the day, so I think my effort will be to try to integrate as best as possible this conversation about the footprint, the ecological footprint. I differentiate because there are many different kinds of footprints, and there's some things that the global footprint network does not do, and the ecological footprint is not about. So we'll try to tease that out as the discussion goes on. And really, I'd like for this to be a discussion. I brought a bunch of slides, and some of them will blow through very quickly, others will pause and talk about in some detail. I invite discussion, questions, dialogue between everybody in the room. What I hope to do more than anything is facilitate a discussion about what footprinting is all about and how, again, the ecological footprint differs from other kinds of footprint undertakings or activities that you might know about. As a little bit of background, this is for me a very interesting closure. It's serendipitous in so many ways. I started out in environmental science at the University of New Mexico years and years ago, and looking for work, quickly found my way to the U.S. power industry, where I brought my interest in environmental science to bear on the needs of the energy industry, which back in those days was a brand new concept for them. I was sort of the guinea pig in many ways, I and my colleagues, for the first engagement between the U.S. energy industry and environmental thinking. This goes back to the 1970s, and there's a whole lot of war stories to tell you. There's experiences to share about how things have changed from then till now, and there have been some remarkable changes. About 5 years, maybe more into that activity, I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to study. At the time, I was involved in wilderness politics. The U.S. Forest Service was trying to identify potential new wilderness areas for the National Wilderness Preservation System at the time. So I was very much into that on behalf of the Ozark Society and the Wilderness Society and others in that region. And it just so happened that at the University of Arkansas, I was living in Little Rock at the time, there was a specialist, a guy who had been involved in wilderness psychology for his entire academic career. And so he and I made a connection, and one thing led to another, and I discovered social psychology, and I discovered wilderness psychology, and I discovered transpersonal psychology. And so all of that came together in a master's program for me, which opened my eyes to a whole new way of seeing the relationship between humans and nature. So I really celebrate the work that Kirsten and others here at CIIS are doing to try to integrate our experience in the world so that body, mind, and spirit become not separate things but part of the whole person. This has been, I think, my education in this field. And so although I've been in industry for a long time, I try to bring these ways of thinking about the relationship between people and nature as often as possible, both to industry, to government when I have that opportunity, and then certainly in terms of the lessons that I bring and the teaching that I'm able to do for students as well. I do teach. I have several classes that I offer through UC Berkeley Extension, mostly on sustainability science, mostly on environmental science. That's seems to be the focus of most people now trying to do career changes as part of this new economic downturn. But I've recently offered a class which the UC Berkeley folks are still debating on, called Sociology or Society and Sustainability. And that's going to open the door to this body, mind, spirit discussion, which I think is at the heart of everything that we talk about today. I think that the break between humans and nature has been so severe over a long, long time, thousands of years, that overcoming that is very difficult, but I think it's now essential as a way to accelerate the movement towards sustainability. So during this discussion about the ecological footprint, I'm sure there will be opportunities for your experience and your perspectives about that body-mind-spirit connection to come to bear, and hopefully we can have a very interesting conversation about that. Where did this all go?
Might be hibernating.
Maybe the conference. What do you think? Yeah. That's good, yeah.
Yeah. Some of these slides are quite detailed, and I was thinking that. But where we need to dig into that detail, of course, we can do so here in the conversation. I brought copies of mentioned material that we're going to be looking at. I understand you've been to the website, is that true? And had an opportunity to look at the background associated with ecological footprint and global footprint network. You probably know that we're based in Oakland, California, with offices in Brussels and Zurich. And over the years, Matthias Wackernagel, the founder of Global Footprint Network, and actually the inventor of ecological footprint, and his wife Susan Burns are the founders of this organization, and have been quite inspiration to me and to others as they take the messages of ecological footprint into nations across the planet. It's amazing the experience that these people have had and the insights that have been brought to bear for policymakers with respect to the opportunities and limits. Now, how does that sound as a title for this discussion, this presentation? Sustainability is all about, beginning to think about managing economies and managing our relationships to the world in a way that allows for an equity between ourselves and the natural resource base. Oftentimes, people think about sustainability as an expression of lack, as an expression of limits. And yes, that's true, and we'll see why in a minute. I mean, the truth of the matter is that we as human beings, 6.7 billion of us now, are consuming biocapacity on the planet at a rate that the planet can't sustain. And so the challenge becomes then how to reshape that relationship so that we can discover new opportunities in these limits and prosper as a result. If you're familiar with the definition of sustainability, you know that there are three component parts to that. This comes from the Brundtland Commission in the late 1980s. Gro Harlem Brundtland was is still a prominent figure in the UN framework. She has provided for us not just this definition of sustainability, but many of the new initiatives that the UN overall is pursuing still. The idea is that we want to learn to live well now. We want quality lives. And we want those lives to be available not just to ourselves, but to our children and to their children. And we want those lives, these quality experiences that we have to exist within the framework of the single planet that we occupy. We consume resources as if there was some other planet somewhere that could support that demand that we bring. The truth of the matter is there's just this one planet. There are very limited resources within the planet's sphere. And so now, at 6.7 billion people, the challenge becomes learning to live well within the means of the single planet. Why now and not before? Because in the old days, with localized economies and basically industrial framework that rapidly grew, things have changed. We moved from an empty world after the Second World War, basically, to the present day, where we are experiencing what we refer to as peak everything. You've heard of peak oil?